Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to break down some of my top tips that will help you choose an awesome domain name. So my first top tip is choosing a .com extension. This is really crucial for a couple of reasons. So the first reason is that people just trust a .com extension more than the other ones, and it's also a lot more popular. For example, if you tell someone to visit a website like How to Make Money, they'll most likely add the .com extension unless you specifically tell them to use another one like .net. Also, if you have the same domain name as someone else, but they have the .com extension and you have another one, they'll probably end up stealing some of your traffic, even though the person who was typing in the website was intending to visit your website. That's just simply because .coms are so much more popular. The next best extensions are .net and .org, but honestly, it's easy just to stick with the .com. You don't want to end up competing with someone who has the same domain and a better extension. If you really like the domain but the .com is gone, you can settle for .net or .org. So my next tip is simply don't use hyphens in your domain name. Hyphens just don't look good in domain names. They don't portray authority like a non-hyphen domain does. Think of it this way: what websites do you visit the most? What popular blogs do you read? Do any of their domains have hyphens? Probably not. And back to the point on authority, if you have to use hyphens in your domain, it's most likely because someone has a domain without the hyphens already, right? So if you wanted How to Make Money Online, but someone already had it, so you had to make a hyphened version, you won't appear to be authority, just like if you had a .NET extension. People will trust the non-hyphen version more than they will trust yours. And to be fair, I've never seen a top popular website that had a domain that had hyphens. Okay, so the next tip is to keep your domain name short. This is important for a few reasons. Firstly, because it's just easier to remember and to type into a web browser. If your domain is super long, there's an increased chance of someone misspelling something in the domain and then just getting fed up and not visiting your website. So for example, how to make money online by doing affiliatemarketing.com. Let's face it, nobody's going to be bothered to type that into their browsers. They'll probably make mistakes, and plus that domain is not memorable or brandable, which leads me to my next tip. So your domain needs to be easy to remember. For example, if you told someone about your domain in person, would they remember it when they got home? Would they remember it in a few days' time when they finally had some time to check it out? You should also make sure that your domain can be branded. If you have a domain idea, right, can you think of like a logo design for it or a banner design for it? Can you brand a domain like howtomakemoneyonline.com? This isn't the most crucial tip, but it's worth thinking about. So my next tip is don't stuff your keywords in your domain name. Keyword stuffing is the notion of trying to put as many keywords as you can into your domain name. For example, if you're in the muscle building niche, a keyword stuffed domain would be something like how to build muscles and the top muscle building tips.com. How to build muscles is a keyword and the top muscle building tips is another keyword. The benefit of having keywords in your domain for SEO purposes has dropped a lot, and it isn't a crucial factor to ranking on Google anymore. Therefore, it's much better to opt for a broader, better domain name. That doesn't mean you can't have keywords in your domain, just don't overdo it. So, my final tip is choosing a broad domain name. This is important because it leaves your options open. For example, if you're in the diet and nutrition niche and you choose a domain name like diet and nutrition for people over 50, you're basically stuck with that audience and you won't appeal to anyone else. While it's useful to niche down and have a sub-niche to focus on, I don't advise having a domain name that limits you to what audience you can target, just in case things change in the future. You might start off targeting a certain audience, and once you see success, you might want to branch out to other audiences. Hence, keeping your domain name broad would be a smart choice. I mean, unless you're 100% sure on who your audience is and you know that you won't be targeting other groups, then choose a broad domain name and stick to that. So now we're going to take a look at some examples of bad domain names and good domain names. Bear in mind that this can be subjective, so don't overthink it. It's just going to give you a basic idea of what makes a good domain name and what makes a bad one. Okay, so let's start with some bad domain names. How to Make Women Attracted to You All the Time.com has a .com extension and doesn't have any hyphens, which is good. However, it's way too long, which makes it hard to remember, and it's also a hard domain to brand. Therefore, this is an example of a bad domain name. Now we have the best nutritional advice.ninja. This domain uses hyphens, has a .ninja extension, and looks like someone just tried to get keywords into the domain name. This domain just doesn't portray any authority. I personally wouldn't trust the information on a domain like this. If it was the best nutritional advice without the hyphens and with a .com extension, I would probably trust it a lot more. Okay, so gettingfitforover50s.com is relatively short, has a .com extension, and doesn't have any hyphens. So these are all good things. However, this domain is quite narrow. It'll be really difficult in the future if you decide to change your audience to other people outside of the over 50 group. You'd have to change your entire domain name. And while niching down to a specific audience is great, like I mentioned before, having a broad domain name just keeps your options open for the future. Okay, so we have how to make money by creating and selling ebooks.com. And while it has the .com extension, it's still a horrible domain. It's a super long domain that has hyphens. It looks like keyword stuffing, trying to get the how to make money and creating and selling ebooks keywords into the domain. Also, it's not a broad domain name. With this domain, you'd only be able to talk about ebooks and no other source of making money online. Just think, would you trust a domain like this, or would you trust createmoneymakingebooks.com? Okay, so let's look at some examples of good domain names. Okay, so the femaleattractiongame.com is a much better domain than how to make women attracted to you all the time.com. They both have the .com extension, but the female attraction game is much shorter, easier to remember, and brandable. The name itself just portrays more authority and more trust. Next we have nutritionistking.com, which is actually a domain I previously used. It has a .com extension, no hyphens, is short and easy to remember, and I found it very easy to brand in the past. Also, the domain is broad, so I wasn't stuck with a particular audience. I could branch out whenever I wanted to. The next domain we have is thefitnessquest.com. When someone sees this domain, they'll automatically trust it simply because it's short, has a .com extension, doesn't have any hyphens, and it seems like a brand. It just simply gives an impression that it's an authority site, whereas something like howtoloseweighrapidly.com doesn't have the same effect. Createmoneymakingebooks.com is a simple, straight-to-the-point domain. One look at this and you know exactly what this website is going to be about. Although it's not entirely broad, this is a good example of niching down to a specific sub-niche. Kitthedreamguy.com is a domain name for my current niche site that I'm working on. It's a short domain that has a .com extension, no hyphens, it's easy to remember, and it'll be easy to brand. So this last example, thepursuitofadream.com, is the domain name of my main site, and I'd like to think it's a good domain name. It meets all the criteria that I have when I choose my domain names. Okay, so now that we've covered what makes a good domain name and gone through some examples of good domain names and bad domain names, here are some final tips from me that you can think about when choosing a domain name. So the first tip I have is for you to not overthink it and get stuck in analysis paralysis. I've spent countless hours sitting around trying to choose between different domain names. It's a waste of time. Use my tips and just make a wise choice. So it's much more important to focus on driving traffic. The more time you spend on choosing a domain name, the less time you're spending on driving traffic to your website and building your email list. Which leads me to my last point. Seriously, just make a choice and stick with it. Okay, so we've reached the end of the video. I'm going to quickly summarize what a good domain name has and doesn't have. Okay, so first of all, a good domain name has a .com extension. It's better than the rest because it's more popular and more trusted. A good domain name doesn't have any hyphens, they don't look good, and they don't portray any authority. A good domain name is also short, it looks better, and it's easier to remember, and it doesn't take as much effort to type in. A good domain name is also memorable and brandable. You want people to talk about your domain on social media and in person, so make sure they'll remember your domain and brand. A good domain name also isn't stuffed with keywords. The SEO benefit of having your keywords in your domain has dropped drastically and isn't a key factor in Google rankings anymore. So there's no reason to stuff keywords into your domain name, so make sure you don't do that. And finally, a good domain name is broad. While it's effective to niche down, I would advise choosing a domain name that leaves your options open for the future. And that's it. You now have all the information you need to choose yourself an awesome domain name.